And we're live. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to, I guess I usually say to another episode of Cinematic Realms, but it's been a while. It's been a year, which is weird to think of. A lot of stuff happened in my life. So the streaming got put on hold for a while, but welcome back. I'm so happy to see some people in the chat. I know some of you haven't watched the show yet, so although we will be getting into the spoiler territory at some point because it's impossible not to. Speaking of which, we're talking about Star Trek Picard tonight, the final season, which just completely blew me away, but we'll get into all that. I want to welcome my guests, the wonderful AK and Mr. Voice of Geekdom himself, Dan. How are you guys doing?
Really good. Yeah, excellent. Excited to be here. Right, it's been a while since I've really done much content as well, so I am also in the same boat personally, and yeah, it's great to be here, and yeah, I'm excited to talk about this because you know how much Star Trek means to me, and yeah, it's a good one because this season is kind of what I've been wanting from this show from the start, and yeah, I've got so many thoughts and feelings, but yeah. It's good to see you again, AK. Well, I can't see you, but it's good to see. I can see you, but I can't see you. But yeah, always a pleasure.
Yeah, we have an avatar of AK.
Yes, yes. I have a plate of delicious food in front of me that I'm sure not everybody wants to see me stuffing my face. So I'll be on camera shortly. Thank you, John, for having me on. And Dan, it's been a while since we were able to do something all together. So I'm very happy to be here. And I actually just got done with the season about an hour ago, and just chef's kiss to all of it. So you want to talk about a good long con? This we'll get into it. That I'm going to stop there.
I will say my original plan was actually to wrap up like the last two episodes today, shortly before the stream. But the season was so damn good that I finished it all up yesterday because I couldn't help myself. But before we actually get into the show, I just want to say a couple things real quick. Nothing that people who are actually watching this won't be aware of, but this was a tough year for me. The last stream I did was not to get too sad for mom, but it was right before my mom went into the assisted living facility. And throughout the year, it was really difficult, and she passed away last September. And so it's taken a while to kind of get back to where I want to be in terms of being ready to do these things. But I thank you all for your support. You guys have, you know, all of you, from the people with me today on the stream to the people in the chat and loads of people who aren't here, you know, you guys got me through this year, and I just want to thank you. And speaking of also, I see the lovely Heidi Costume Co is here as well. I want to thank her as well as a couple other people who invited me onto their channels over the past year, so I got to do some non-Here Be Dragons content here and there to get my fix, and that meant a lot. So yeah, now we got that over with. I will say about this show as a precursor to launching into the discussion of season 3. It's interesting, Dan. I know you said this is what you wanted from the show all along. I feel like I'm always rooting for the underdog, which is kind of my way. So seasons 1 and 2, I actually rather enjoyed because I would not without their faults. You know, I can fully acknowledge that, but I know that they were trying to do something different with the show from Next Generation. And so going into the season, it's funny because I commented in the Slack, I was like, Well, so much for that. Yeah, when I watched the first episode, I was like, they're leaning into like, it's the next gen cast. The music is very nostalgic, which, by the way, we're going to get into the music. So I was actually, funny enough, I was a little bit cynical starting this season, but dear God, it just like it's impossible to not be won over almost immediately, because this season just was so much more than I could have ever anticipated. And we were chatting about it, Dan. I got emotional watching this season. It really is, to my mind, it's like the final next generation movie, if that movie is 10 hours long, and like was just about everything you could hope for.
Well, the final 2 episodes were sort of a movie in themselves, so maybe that was the final movie in a sense. I think one of the showrunners even said something similar. So,
so
we never did get. Sorry, John. Go
ahead. No, I was just gonna hand it over to you guys to give sort of your broad feelings about the season and sort of what you were hoping for going into it, and just how you felt over the course of the season.
I've talked a lot, so you go. Okay.
All right. Starting out, I honestly didn't have any expectations. Well, I had maybe one small one, and I started watching. I was going to watch it eventually, but I jumped in head first a little while ago, starting with season 1. Because a lot of folks I saw on some of my other social medias were shipping Seven with this character named Raffi. I'm like, okay, hold on, what the hell is a Raffi? So, of course, fanfic writer. So I go in, I do the research. I'm like, oh, okay, well, put a pin in that one. We'll come back to it. I personally always ship Seven with B'Elanna. So I appreciate that there's this other woman of color now that Seven's eyes are on. That was awesome. But jumping in, once I started getting past, maybe I think it was the 2nd or 3rd episode, I was all in from there. Like, if the movie Red with Helen Mirren, Bruce Willis, and John Malkovich, like, if Red was a space adventure, that's what Picard gives me, and I loved every bit of it. Like, everything just stayed lining up. Back to back, the cameo guest stars. Not everyone stayed around, but the long con, like I was saying earlier, it's that our original bridge crew. Well, not everyone's original bridge crew, but for me, what really always got me in was that bridge crew of the Enterprise D, and every last one of them came back to do something here, and just that right there, just freaking perfection. And they wove everything in, I think, in a way that it could realistically, well, I mean, as realistic as Space Wars could happen with how things were left off when Next Generation was ended. It all came. They even had a little 5-second cameo with Wesley coming back to recruit the next Traveler. I thought that was a cool tie-in. I actually thought it was going to take Wesley coming in at the end, save the day, but what they did was far more clever. So I love this whole season. The series was great. Once I saw Guinan was coming in, and then we got present day Guinan, plus in the past Guinan, who was already on her shit. Like, I love it. That's
that was a great piece of casting actually for young Guinan. I thought she did really well.
Very good.
And as long as we're mentioning like highlights from season 2, I mentioned this to you, Dan. I totally geeked out when I saw James Callis get cast as, a spoiler alert, Picard's father, and that's just a great bit of like sci-fi, geekery that I couldn't resist. So, and for those who don't know, James Callis played Gaius Baltar on Battlestar Galactica.
Yeah,
he was superb in that show. He was one of the highlights of that show, definitely.
I feel like I need to go back and do a rewatch of Battlestar Galactica. It's been a while.
Been years since I've watched that, but he was great.
Which, by the way, I'd be remiss if I didn't say that Stephen Nessie and I have had discussions about covering Battlestar on Here Be Dragons. So
nice.
So
well,
yeah,
there you go, Stephen. He's in the chat. Put an asterisk next to that, sir. We're waiting.
I've never watched any of the other spin-off shows for Battlestar. I should watch those sometime as well. I don't know if they're good or not, but
yeah, no, well, we could get into a whole thing about that.
That's a conversation for another time, I'm sure.
Yeah, we'll talk about that off screen.
Just trust me, once you get me started on Battlestar, that'll be half the stream.
Hard to stop. It's hard to stop.
No, but like, speaking of that picture that I had just put up of the crew all gathered around, I mean, wasn't that just like, weren't you guys grinning ear to ear just during the whole scene?
That whole scene, that last poker game, when Worf was saying, well, it's been real, but I'm about to go. Picard pulls out that ace. He was like, well, let's play a couple of hands first. And that final ending shot that just stayed on them, going through the nostalgia with us. Like, I hate admitting that I cry sometimes, but I absolutely cried watching that because it just brought so much joy to my heart. I love seeing it.
Yeah, it just we're going to jump all over the place with this. Alan's mentioning Shaw. What a great bit of casting that was, and a really
very good casting,
fascinating character. And like I kind of I wanted to see more of him. I was kind of bummed that but it makes perfect sense.
There is a place where you can see more of the actor because he was in Star Trek Enterprise. I think he played did he play a Vulcan character or a Romulan character? I think it's been a while, but
was he?
Yeah, he was in the 4th season of that show.
I
never finished Enterprise.
Yeah, I remember hearing in one of the interviews that he did that he had a guest spot in one of the other shows, which, by the way, I have not. There's at least 2 shows I haven't. Yeah, I think it's just 2. I haven't seen Enterprise and I haven't seen Voyager. And this show made me want to go back and watch both of those, especially Voyager, just because
Voyager is a must. Tell him, AK.
I was gonna say, yeah.
I know you love Voyager.
When you do Voyager, I will volunteer as tribute right now to come back and chat about it because that is probably second only to Next Generation of Star Treks in my world, and it had its flaws. And there's a lot of behind the scenes things also that came out on screen and how some things were played that I didn't like. But the overall story of this little tiny ragtag crew that gets put together, which is half Maquis, at a time where the Maquis are on everybody's most wanted list in the Delta Quadrant, which we find is, well, now I won't say it, just in case it's too much of a spoiler for John. But there's a lot of things to be found in the Delta Quadrant, and some of those at Misadventures, they were great. They were absolutely great. So please do Voyager.
This show picks up on plot threads from both Voyager and DS9 as well, which is really cool.
Yeah, the good thing was I never felt like I was lost because I didn't know about those plot threads from Voyager or characters, but it did make me interested in going there because there were moments where I was like, oh, I can tell this would have really hit hard, like even more so if I had seen Voyager.
If you knew who Tuvok was before the finale episode and how he and Seven interacted, everything that happened with those scenes together, especially once she got her promotion, gold, absolute gold.
I mean, she just looks great in that captain's chair.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
I mean, come on, let's be real. Seven looks good in anything.
Any chair, standing up.
Any chair, standing up. That was her thing on Voyager. I prefer to stand.
In a Borg alcove,
Anywhere.
No, I was watching an interview with her about the finale, and I think it was with the showrunner of Picard, and he was like, yeah, when we saw her sit down in the captain's chair, we were like, oh, she's got the Kirk thing going on with the way she's sitting in the chair.
My first thought was like, yo, it's about time, because Seven literally had to go through the most to even be somewhat recognized. And it took the dude that tried to change her and make her answer to the freaking name of Hanson, Bill, the whole time she was under his command. But that was almost the linchpin that came in. It's like this most cynical, by the book asshole that we've seen has this has a number one that does not care about any of that flack, and she will disobey an order from him if she sees the greater good in doing so. And he loved that. And that's not something I expected from him. So I thought that was a really cool added in twist. Plus, I get why they killed him. I was going into that whole end sequence thinking someone of the original crew is going to die. It just better not be Seven or Raffi. Someone had to be sacrificed, so it ended up being the new guy that came in. Well, quote unquote new guy. Which makes sense.
Yeah, and like, and it's obvious why. Like, it's obvious why they, didn't want to go the route of killing off, one of, the next gen crew, is aside from the fact that people would be would be upset.
The whole fandom would have rioted.
But also, you need. They were building towards the card scene at the end, and it's like you can't do that with, missing a member of the family. Like they even brought Data back from the dead, and it's like.
I want to talk about a clever sequence, dude. The way it's when it was halfway through and I was almost starting to despair, I was like, no, wait a minute. This is Data I'm talking about. And then he said, well, I'm going to give these to you, brother. I was like, oh, you clever bastard. And I was so proud of myself because I figured out what was happening before it happened.
Yeah,
Data is that dude, man.
And like, I'm just so like, I don't care how like contrived maybe some people feel. Like I love it that they worked in their way of like explaining why why Data looks older, and so Brent just gets to do his thing with without them attempting to pull any trickery to make him look younger or anything like that. And plus it just helps with the whole this notion of Data finally achieving
what it is to be human.
Yeah, and the fact that old age comes along with that, and plus it allows him to be part of the rest of the crew, going through the same stuff, and
there was one key thing that happened that made me giggle like I was a child, but it also just made so much sense for it to be in there. Data's like, well, I experienced life now, I've experienced death, and he goes to turn while he's talking, and there's a crack in his neck. He's like, oh wait, this is new. I'm here for all of this. And that's just so cleverly done because this is already Data's MO. So of course he sees his family aging up and going through these things and having to deal with all that change. So obviously he wants to experience that too for himself. And they put it in here. And I thought that was great that they remembered that.
I thought what made the resurrection of Data work was that they didn't... So he had a line where he talked about how the old him is still at rest. Like he was gone and he's at peace. Because Picard says to him... last time I spoke to you, you wanted to experience death, and I hope we haven't, sort of bypassed that experience for you. And so they kind of had it both ways in a way that was clever and worked. I didn't think it was contrived the way that he came back. My only small quibble, and it's a really small quibble, is that they did the whole scene with him with Lore, which was really great, where he passes over his memories to him, and then Lore kind of becomes him, and they become each other. Which is great. It was a really cool idea. But then they did something similar in the finale with Jack and Picard in the scene where Picard like goes into the collective, right? So it was a very similar scene, and I had this sort of feeling like we've already kind of been here this season, a little bit, slightly different, but it was a similar enough scene that I thought maybe they could have handled that a different way. But yeah, that's sort of just a sort of shade of kind of quibbling with that rather than it being an issue or a plot hole or something. But on the whole, it's great to see Data back, and it's really cool how they had him evolve, and because that was his whole journey. It was wanting to be human, wanting to, and now that he is human, he's going to have a whole new set of challenges, which is great. And I hope we see him again somewhere, because why not?
I will say, it felt like, to me, it just felt like the best kind of wish fulfillment ever.
Absolutely.
And in a great way. Like, I know, like, that can kind of be used as, oh, well, it's fan service and all that. But you know what? Damn it, when it's done well,
give me all the good fan service.
It's done freaking well, and the whole time it was like, I can't believe I'm seeing this. This is so amazing, and yeah, just him, like the whole thing with Geordi, and you just use the contraction, and
that was great.
No, I didn't.
Well, no, I didn't. Right? Speaking of Geordi, if I could do just one slight segue, I appreciated that his daughter was the pilot, but also LeVar Burton's daughter was the pilot. Once I found out that that's what their relation was, not just their characters are related, I'd love that even more.
That was the engineer, wasn't it? Not the pilot. The pilot was not played by his real-life daughter. His real-life daughter played the other daughter.
That's right.
Yeah.
I thought pilot because she was always up there in that chair on the bridge. Yeah, but you're right.
Yeah, they were both great though. I really enjoyed both their performances.
Yeah, you want to talk about passing on the legacy? That's how you do it. That's great.
Yeah. Well, hopefully we're getting a spin-off, and who knows? But it looks like we might be.
Yeah, they keep like saying not in active development, but like they're talking about it so much that it's like they like not in active development, but it's.
But they left us the hugest breadcrumb at the end. Like I should have known some tomfoolery was going to come up because they were showing Jack in that room by himself. And then I heard his voice. And I was like, oh, for fuck's sake, Q, can you not, sir? Please. I mean, bring on the Q shenanigans. I'm here for it, but still, Q, can you not? Can you leave people alone? How long is this damn trial supposed to be going on, man?
I was surprised about that only because, especially since they haven't officially announced anything with, a spin-off show that, and this was being billed as the final season. I was like, you bastards, you're really going to do a post-credit scene?
Exactly. Like, how dare
there's a little MCU, right?
Yeah.
It was, but see, it's that good bit of the MCU that everyone still stays in the seats for because we know it's coming. When we don't get it, we get mad.
I was like, no, you had like the perfect crescendo, the ending. Like you're gonna do this to me, and then have the audacity to say that that you're not already moving ahead with the next show. Like,
yo, that cutoff right before they took off, and what was Jack's line? It's like, oh, you're writing the first line of what's gonna turn out to be your legacy now, Captain. And just as she goes to say it, the damn credits start rolling. I jumped out of my chair. I said, oh, you rat bastards. I'm sure my neighbors hate me now because I've been yelling at my computer this whole week. Once
it held on her for like a few seconds, I was like, they're going to cut off before she says it.
Right, like, oh, you want to know what she says? You got to come back.
I know another thing I heard in one of the interviews was like that another idea they had for it was coming back for like a second end credit, like after the full credits, and it's just reaction shots from the crew kind of going like where they weren't too impressed, but they decided not to go with that. I'm glad because Seven is a clever lady, and it just from the look on her face before it cut, I think she was about to say something freaking spectacularly funny, but they didn't let us hear the joke.
Data never got to finish his joke either.
I was about to say that. Yeah,
that damn joke is too long.
There was a young woman from Venus. It's so funny. I watched that recently with Kate because we've been watching all of Star Trek together.
Nice.
We've been watching TNG and DS9 mostly. So we watched that recently. That's a reference from The Naked Now, which was episode 2, season 1 of TNG. There was a lot of that.
Sorry.
Wow. That's a long way back, and you know, speaking of, you guys were talking about how, you know, Voyager is not perfect and stuff. Well, you know, all of the Trek shows had their bumpy,
very true,
bumpy start. So, I mean, Dan, I absolutely love DS9 with all my heart, but even DS9 takes some time to find itself.
Yeah. I wish Jadzia would have been able to stick around as that. I wasn't that big of a fan of Ezri, but
movie. Well, and speaking of which, I kind of was. It didn't it didn't bum me out so much that I, you know, felt anything was anything about the finale was spoiled by. But there was a little bit of me that was like, can we have a little some DS9 cameos?
With the changelings there, it did feel like we could do. I was wondering whether we might see, you know, Kira or Jake or somebody like that, but it never happened.
Yeah, that's all right.
What they could have done, actually, is I saw somebody online saying this, so this is not my original thought, but they could have had Rene Auberjonois' son playing Odo, because I don't know if you've ever seen his son as an actor, he looks exactly like his dad. It's like so.
Oh, that would. Who's to say he doesn't show up in the new show though? I mean, this is like the next generation now.
I mean, maybe he would have found it a little maudlin to play his dad's character. I don't know, but for those who don't know, Rene Auberjonois passed away in I think 2019.
A couple of years ago. Yeah.
Maybe
he rest in peace.
He was mentioned, and we saw his portrait, but that was the closest we got to any DS9 cameos.
Yeah, when they were mentioning him, I was like, "Oh, that's such a shame," because you know, if he was still alive, I think we would have gotten Odo.
One more shout out and an RIP for Anton Chekhov. If you guys caught that, and for those of you that may not know that, but Anton, I believe, is the name of the young actor that played young Chekhov in the newer Star Trek movies, and he tragically passed away just before the second one came out, I think. If I'm correct, on the timeline, but third one,
because he's in the third one. So
Anton Yelchin.
And so
I love that they put that in there for him.
And it was the voice of the original Chekhov,
Walter Koenig. Yeah.
The nostalgia has been so good, because sometimes you can overdo nostalgia, but everything here was done so well. Big plot point. I think she should have stayed around longer. Rolla Rand. We finally got to see where she ended up and what happened, and here again. We're losing our girl because she's a freedom fighter, and she got taken out in the middle of the fight.
Yeah, but you know, she's the one who got the ball rolling on figuring the stuff out. So I'm glad that, you know, she didn't play as long of a role in this as maybe I would have gone crazy to have more and more of her, but I'm happy that it was an important part that she played. So,
and she basically showed all of her Maquis skills, because she's noticed everything for a long while, and she's been trying to work against and counteract it with as little movement as she could without being detected. So, and she got this far. So, and I think that that conversation between her and Picard was long overdue, and I'm glad that it could come out to happen, because I think Picard saw her a little bit like how he saw Wesley, like that was his other long lost kid that sadly would not conform to his expectations, and she had to take a different path, and it took him this long to learn you need to let these kids find their feet.
There was a mentor-mentee relationship there, definitely, which was it was definitely clear from the last 3 seasons of TNG, and the betrayal on his face in that penultimate episode of TNG where she betrays him was sort of it did stay with you. So it felt like the last piece of Picard's story that he still needed to resolve a little, actually. So it was a great shout to have her. I would have also liked to have seen more of her, and also for her maybe not to have died as well, because it felt like they just brought her in and killed her off. But it was a strong episode, and it was one of the most moving points of the season, and there were quite a few moving points.
Yeah, no, and I've been a real fan of Michelle Forbes for years. She usually
another Battlestar actor, actually.
Yeah, she's not a nice person at all.
Really?
Battlestar. She's
in her character in
Battlestar.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
She does always tend to play a lot of these very like stern, characters who aren't necessarily great at people skills, but she's always just amazing, and her performances are always off the chart. So, but yeah, no, it's and I always did actually, even though she had like guest spots throughout TNG, I always wanted a bit more of her in that show, and so it ends up being the same thing here, where we get her, but just not for long enough.
I think, if I'm remembering correctly, they were actually toying with the idea of Rolaran being on Deep Space Nine, but because it wasn't going to work out with scheduling with the actress, that's how we got Kira Nerys.
Yeah, that's right.
And shout out to Nana Visitor for playing that, because Kira's one of my favorite characters.
Yeah, I'm so conflicted about that, because it's like the idea of Ro being in that position just seems utterly thrilling. But I'm never ever going to, sacrifice, my girl Kira, because
we need Kira in our lives.
Yeah,
you know who else we need? What was her title on In the Mirror? The Inquisitor. Was it the Inquisitor?
What?
I think it was.
Mirror.
Yeah. There's a Mirror Realm episode where she's like this really horrible warlord, basically, and
really,
I think she's
really thirsty but really horrible warlord.
Yeah. But Nana Visitor played that role, that part so well. You could tell she had fun putting Kira in that type of headspace.
I can't remember her title either. I just watched that recently too, but it's not in my head right now.
So yeah, I'm just trying to jump around to a bunch of different stuff. Going closer to sort of towards the beginning of the season, we start off with Gates McFadden, and just like, which kind of sets you up for where this whole season is going. It's like right off the bat, like she like is startling, waking up, and it's her, and it's like, oh yeah, this is next gen this season, and we're really going for it. And it's like one of the things that was so great about this season, and I think we kind of see it right off the bat with her, is we get to see how all these characters have changed over the years.
Mm-hmm.
And I got to say, it was really great just right off the bat seeing her kicking ass and taking names.
I love that they showed more that part of her personality, because a lot of folks could forget there were many in a way mission that Dr. Crusher came in with the plans to save the day, and then if anyone was sick, she'd be able to find a cure miraculously, because she's brilliant like that, which is why I love where her character ended up in the finale. She's all back in, and this was the beginning of like the spy adventure where she was concerned, and I really liked how they wrote and played her character for this.
Yeah, I will admit, it took me off guard initially, the fact that she had apparently been completely out of contact with everybody since they broke apart at some point after the last movie. And
since she found out she was pregnant.
Yeah. That was,
and it makes sense because they're a tight-knit family.
yeah.
I mean, not that Deanna would ever betray her confidence, but I don't think the same could be said for Will, because he would be looking at it from Picard's perspective and saying, no, Picard needs to know about his kid.
No, Jimmy, not that Kira. We're talking about a different Kira.
I mean, but shout out to that Kira too.
Yeah, always. But no, it's like, yeah, so that took me off guard initially, because I was surprised. But then as the story unfolds, like, you're right, it makes complete perfect sense.
You get it. Mm-hmm.
And yeah, and I do want to like mention Jack, who's played by, oh God, what's the
Ed
actor's name?
Spillers.
Ed Spillers. And like the only thing I had seen him in before was an Outlander. And let me tell you guys,
who is he in Outlander?
He's was the psycho from like the 4th and 5th season to the
I'm gonna have to go back and watch.
Yeah, the father of who's the daughter of Claire and Jamie's daughter. It's the father of her son, who, you know, he's the one who assaulted her, and he's a real son of a bitch. Obviously.
Interesting.
But he's like such a psychopath in that show. And so when I initially saw him, like, I feel like I was like, I feel like you're up to no good.
He's got issues in this show too.
Yeah. But it took me just a little while to be like, yeah, you may be going through stuff, but I think you're on the level, and I can sort of trust you to at least have good intentions.
I think Deanna summed him up absolutely correctly. I forget what it was they were talking about, but when he answered something, she turned to look at him. She's like, yeah, you definitely your daddy's son. Because he was talking about something reckless, and we've seen how Picard operates.
Oh, yeah.
He is very much his son.
Which brings me to like the other part of the early episodes of the season that I just wanted to talk about. Like, obviously, it's great when the whole crew is together, but I especially loved the banter between Picard and Riker early on, just especially when they meet Jack and they're both in the lift, and Riker's like, does he not remind you of anything? It's like, are we really? Are we?
Riker remains the smart ass on the bridge.
Riker is saying what the audience is thinking. That's the thing. That's what makes it so funny.
And I'm very sure that Jonathan Frakes recognized that, and that is exactly why he leaned into those.
Jonathan Frakes has just got great charisma as an actor.
He really does. He really does. It was so great seeing all of them together again and playing off each other, just like we never left the set at all.
Oh, okay. And I'm going to take a few minutes here, and this won't be the last time, but I can't believe I waited this long. Speaking of the two of them, when they're, in the shuttle going up to the Titan, soon to be the Enterprise, the music for this whole goddamn show, because
John's back.
I'm so geeking out right here because listen, I even got the album cover here because those credits might as well say original music by Jerry Goldsmith, James Horner, and who's the guy who did Dennis McCarthy, because the music for this show was like, it was just so breathtakingly gorgeous, not just in its execution, but in its construction, because obviously we got to, what's more obvious is we got a lot of the the original theme from the motion picture, also known as the Next Generation theme. But it wasn't just like quotations of themes. It was the entire flavor of that composer's work, especially James Horner's work. If you just listen to especially all the stuff like when you're approaching ships, when ships are like leaving space dock, action music, it all like evokes James Horner's work on Wrath of Khan and Search for Spock so much without ever directly quoting it, which is hilarious because nobody did quotations more than James Horner of himself. But somehow this music was able to evoke his style there were occasional like flourishes that you could recognize from like Wrath of Khan, but nothing overt. But it all just felt like it. It was very seafaring. And then you also had Dennis McCarthy throughout, especially once you get to the Data stuff. I especially noticed like his theme from Generations, and I'm sure there was some other stuff in there. And
yeah, there was one from Generations that I noticed. Sorry to interrupt. When we got the final scene where the Enterprise D returns to the museum, and the Geordi and Riker and Picard are there on the bridge, and they're sort of saying their piece about how the ship has always looked after them. That was the same theme that plays in Generations in the scene on the bridge when it's wrecked on whatever that planet's called, Viridium 3 or whatever.
Yeah.
So that was a really nice callback. It was really well executed.
Oh, Stephen Bonnet was the character's name in Outlander. And I don't know why I couldn't think of it. I'm absolutely obsessed with that show, but I've been noticing lately when I'm on streams, even when it's not my own channel, stuff I'll know by heart, I draw a complete blank on in the moment. I think I'm getting older. But anyway, the music. And then, of course, something that we talked about after I watched the first episode, which, again, I can't believe I was cynical about it at first, but I was just... I think I've been getting like more and more cynical about certain things, but it takes something like this to be like, no, screw all that. You know, it's just beautiful. Which is
you've been hanging out with me too much.
Yeah, the First Contact theme, which is actually the version that we hear in the end credits at the end of every episode, is actually pulled directly from the First Contact soundtrack. Because I guess they figured why mess with perfection. But then I was so happy about this at the end of the season when Picard is giving his toast, they play a newly orchestrated version underneath his speech, and I was like, yes, I like, it's a great homage to have it in the credits, but I needed to hear that theme like in the fabric of the actual show during like an important, because that feels like, and I know it's just based off of one movie, but that does feel like almost like either a family theme or just something intrinsic to like Star Trek: The Next Generation, the in the movies. It just, you know, maybe it's because it's my favorite film of the four, I don't know, but it's just, it always felt to me like the most personal of the theme. So I was so glad to see it utilized in the series. So, and then of course, like another Jerry Goldsmith thing, they kept throwing in his Klingon theme every time Worf either came in the room or was being a badass. I was like, yes, yeah.
I like the little notes of everything that they put together, and then we get to that shot over like the first set of credits where they're in the poker game, and all of those like little instances have been leading up to the full version now at the end of the TNG theme song. That was really cool.
Yeah, no, it's like this was. It's so funny because I felt a little, even though I was very, what's the word I'm looking for? like I gave the first 2 seasons a lot more credit than I think most people do, because a lot of people are like, this is not what we want from the show, and obviously in my mind there were, flaws, to those seasons, but one of the things that I think always, like, if you get the music right, and and it's kind of a terrible thing to say, but great music can cover up a lot of flaws because it can make you feel things. And
Very true.
And the first 2 seasons were just wanting to go in a different direction. They pay a little homage to the original Star Trek theme, like at the very end of the opening credits in those seasons. But beyond that, you don't really get it's mostly fresh material. And what was just so great about the music for this season was that the composers that they brought in for this season specifically didn't have any ego about them. They weren't like, we want to make sure we're putting our stamp on this. They wrote themes that were specific to this show. There's a great family theme with Picard, Beverly, and Jack. Mm-hmm. That's just beautiful, and it worked perfectly with all the other themes. But they weren't like, we need to chug out the past. No, they were like, no, this story musically is built upon these legends, and and we want to mine all that great material. And I just think that I would love to see more composers do it this way when they're dealing with a property that goes so far back and has such a rich musical legacy. Anyway, so there we go. I think I took up at least a full 5 minutes gushing about the music.
I missed you. You're back.
I did. Yes. So the whole reason I led into that was talking about when Riker and Picard are going up to the Titan, which is such a beautiful sequence. And I'm trying to think, has there ever been anything where we saw Riker like captain the Titan?
In Lower Decks, you see him on board the Titan, which is one of the animated shows which is on at the moment, which is really good, by the way. It's very different. It's very silly, but it's worth a watch.
I still got to watch that one.
So yeah, we've seen him there, and I think just in kind of like what they call beta canon in the Star Trek fandom, which is novels and comics and whatnot. But yeah, in Lower Decks, there's a few episodes where we visit the Titan.
Nice. So yeah,
the original Titan before it was refitted, because they say that in season 3.
Mm-hmm. And then, like, we don't necessarily need to go in order, but I'm just sort of naturally segueing into stuff in that way. Then we get to meet Shaw, who actually, like, he hangs back for a bit because he doesn't even want to be on the bridge with the two of them. And like one of the most tense, like, dinner scenes, I guess we'd call it that. But like it leads into, the drunken speech that he gives later on in the season about, Picard and Locutus and that whole battle. And I just wanted to gush about that actor's performance, because it starts off like he's so easy to dislike, but you still end up, at least in my opinion, you end up really, I'm really liking the character, because, he cares about his ship. He, cares about his crew, and, he is good at what he does, and he just has a really big grudge, understandably.
I think what I was feeling with him initially was that I don't agree with him, but I also can see where he's coming from a little bit. Like, some of the things he was saying were making some sense. But not that he doesn't like red wine, or that he doesn't like jazz music. I was just him becoming philosopher and him being rude. But the stuff that he was saying about you guys being cowboys and creating trouble and stuff. Like you can kind of see where somebody in the universe might feel that way. And then, of course, he gets backstory later on and it explains how he comes to that conclusion and what his damage is there. But it was like, it was a character that felt believable.
Yeah, and what's funny is, like, just when he's initially saying, like, when he's saying all that, we're like, no, leave our guys alone. But then you're like, oh, wait, they actually are trying to deceive him. So, so maybe he's not completely wrong.
I mean, they do be reckless, but it's not reckless without a cause, though. Things happen, they respond to them, and, you know, sometimes the chips just got to fall where they may.
Yeah, we have that dramatic irony where we've seen TNG and we know what happened, and we know it's not Picard's fault about 359 and so on, but you can see in universe how a character might feel that way. We saw that with Cisco as well in the pilot of DS9, where he was, I mean, that was more fresh for him. That was like a year afterwards, but it was a similar, well, Cisco lost a lot more, you might argue. But it was almost a callback to that scene in the pilot of DS9.
And I think that actually, you know, feeds into our understanding, you know, here is because we've gone through that journey with Cisco. And even though, like, you know, I remember at the beginning of DS9, I was like, you know, I think you're being a bit, oh, wait, I'm freezing up. Yeah,
your avatar is not moving.
Oh, no. Okay. It's my camera. Let me unplug it and plug it back in. That's still better than my internet signal going out, which is what I was afraid of. Cool. So we've gone through that with Cisco, and I remember when I watched the beginning of DS9, I was initially like, oh, I think you're being a bit unfair to Picard. But then you look at it from his point of view, and it's like, you know, you understand where he's coming from. And then we come to respect Cisco so much, obviously, over the course of DS9. So whenever I hear like somebody bring that up, I'm like, yeah, I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt because it's completely understandable where they're coming from. So that's probably why initially I wasn't like, I don't think I had any dislike for Shaw based off of that. I did kind of wonder if I was going to like him just because he had a serious attitude problem.
I found it funny, to be honest. I was laughing through that whole scene.
Like literally all of the bad things that he associates with them happens in real time to him, and he's going through and he's seeing just every step of the journey. It's some random fuck shit that comes through, and it's usually involves some shenanigans that they pulled. But again, and it's shenanigans that were kind of needed because you can't trust everybody in high command.
Yeah, that's like that was absolutely correct for Beverly to say, you know, don't don't trust anybody. And she turns out to be completely right, because you can't, like, in Starfleet, you can't trust anybody. I do like where Jack's like, so she tells you not to bring anybody. No, bloody Starfleet ship. But yeah, no, and that's like, and like, I think you did prepare me for this, Dan, when you said there's some cool DS9 stuff. And then when the Changelings enter in, which, by the way, I was like, having only seen Changelings from DS9, I was like, wow, special effects have come a long way.
Yeah.
Because that whole, you know, they look a lot better in terms of the...
They looked different as well. They changed the look, but there was a story reason for that, which was good.
Yeah.
I mean, they look sort of like meat pureed. They look disgusting in this show.
They did.
Like a sort of, like, I don't know, like a waste product of like McDonald's or something. Like,
I know my first reaction was like, ugh.
I think they had a really good storyline for this. The rogue changelings.
Yeah, and we first really encountered them with Worf and Raffi, which we got a team up in them, which I thought was... And it's funny because obviously I knew Worf was going to be in this, but when she's messaging, back and forth with him, we don't necessarily know it's him at the moment. But as soon as the person on the other end used the phrase something like, you are a warrior, I was like, that's Worf.
Yeah.
Can we talk about quote unquote pacifist Worf and his behaviors this what was it? Not the whole season, but the bulk of it. It's interesting what he sees as following protocols and things now, and how he is with fighting. I don't know. What do you guys think about that?
Well, no, it's like I remember seeing the preview for the season, and there's a line where he says, "I prefer pacifism now," and to which Riker says, "We're all gonna die." But I took that to mean that we wouldn't see him fighting. But no, he's still gonna fight when it's called for. So I don't know.
Swords of fun.
Yeah,
he's just like, well, Riker, you actually had that thing. Riker's questioning him on the Borg ship. Like, you had a phaser this whole time, but you're over here with a sword fighting these dudes. Why? Because I've just found swords always to be more enjoyable. And of course he would, but you would expect nothing less to come out of Worf's mouth. Which,
by the way, like, perhaps funniest moment of the season, this scene. Where inappropriate.
I was looking at this thing unfold. I said, my man, you don't see Riker standing right there? You still got a thing for this chick and homie is right there?
Is this a rescue or is this still part of the torture?
It's been so many years and how many months, 15 days, 33 hours. Sir, why is this the thing that you're counting down? Like, y'all dated for maybe a half of a season. That's it.
Yeah, when he did move over to DS9, Worf kind of forgot about Troy quite quickly as well. So.
I mean, well, he had a Jadzia like right there in his face. I can't blame him.
Yeah. Oh, Jadzia.
Worf had so many great lines. The other one that I like, I think it was his first line actually, when we first meet him on board the ship from season 1 and 2 with Raffi, and he says, "I am Worf, son of Moog, of the House of Martok, slayer of Gowron, etc., etc. Would you like some chamomile tea? Would you like some chamomile tea?"
Like, since when is Worf drinking chamomile tea?
Well, prune juice is not for everybody. It's a warrior's drink, after all.
Yeah, true enough.
Yeah.
Oh man.
And can I just say, from like a production standpoint, it made, obviously they weren't going to change anything with Worf. Worf has to be, like, aside from looking older, he has to be Worf. But obviously they've been playing around with and experimenting with the Klingon look in various different Trek shows. But I was so happy that, like, nobody even brought up the impulse on the production to quote unquote update.
Well, they're rolling back on that actually now. You've seen Strange New Worlds, haven't you?
No, I haven't. Because I'm actually massively behind on the new stuff, and I just started season 1 of Discovery, which kind of got put on hold for a little bit because I was watching this show. But
that's right. Yeah, you said you'd been watching Discovery.
Yeah, so I'll be getting back to that to build my way up to Strange New Worlds.
Right. So you already know they obviously retconned the Klingon look in Discovery, and then in season 2 of Discovery, they suddenly all had hair, as they should, because they're Klingons. The Klingons are hairy. Like, why did they make them bald? And then in Strange New Worlds, in the new trailer for season 2 of that, they look much more like the Klingons that we've seen before. Okay. So they've kind of really undone that retcon over time, which is, I think is probably a wise move.
Well, because you can't have like every different show or movie having a different Klingon look. It's
that's a bit absurd.
Better just to go back to what worked and just agree upon that as the standard. But no, just as soon as Worf showed up the first time, and Raffi's vision is kind of hazy, but you don't need to see much to know it's Worf, and he's taking everybody out and doing his Worf thing. And again, like just hearing that music, I was like, which I really always loved, and here we go about the music again, but because obviously Jerry Goldsmith's Klingon music was originally just for that intro scene of the motion picture where you get the Klingons, and then he brought it back for Star Trek V. But Star Trek First Contact was the first time it was associated with Worf. So I just always remember hearing that music and him going, perhaps today is a good day to die.
That's a line that he had that I thought was really funny. I think it was with Riker when they were on the Borg ship, and he was like, for a moment I was starting to despair, thinking we might actually not make it out of this. Sir, and not every day is a good day to die. Can we stop that, please?
Okay, so it's we're halfway through the stream. Well, halfway, we think. You never quite know with me.
It's 1 o'clock in the morning, so I am
okay. All right, so halfway. We'll call it halfway. Sorry, I'm terrifying Dan here. So just gonna do the mid roll real quick. I'm glad I actually remembered to do it. So I'm back, everybody. And I actually, as opposed to the Cylons on Battlestar Galactica, I actually do have a plan. Which is, even though I won't be here next weekend because I'll be at a little place called Ice and FireCon, which I hope to see many of you there. But the following week on May 6th, I do already have a stream planned because, I thought I'm coming back. Maybe I should actually try and plan some things out instead of flying by the seat of my pants. So on May 6th, I will be discussing the 2022 film, The Batman, with my guests, Blue Lemons, and you all know him, Mr. Jared Kozel, the actor who plays my double. So be sure to come back for that. So that won't be next week. That'll be in 2 weeks on May 6th. Tomorrow on Here Be Dragons, I'm going to be doing a stream with my brother, Steven Stark, as well as Jared will be guesting on there. I've come into some extra money lately, so I'm able to pay him for more appearances. And we're going to be talking about the second half of The Mandalorian Season 3, which I have some interesting things to say. And that's... I'll leave it at that. I guess that's about it for me. What do you guys? You guys got anything going on that you want to announce or talk about?
I believe next Tuesday, myself and Phantom D Saint will be on with DJ11 again on DJ's channel. We're doing the Orange episode of Kaleidoscope on Netflix. If you haven't seen it yet, go check it out. It's a really good show. Let's see. After that, Thursday, I think we're going to go on to whichever the next color is. Friday is it next Friday or the other Friday? No, in about 2 weeks, the 5th, we're going to do another trivia. It's going to be themed around Star Wars and Cinco de Mayo, because May 4th is May the 4th be with you. So that should be an interesting trivia. Hopefully we'll be able to come up with some great questions. Besides that, I don't think I have anything else just yet.
Nice. Actually, I I do have to say, though, I'm going to be enlisting you again soon, AK, because you and I have been talking about a couple potentially goofier streams, which I'm just going to tell people right now because I'm so excited. We're going to talk about both the cinematic classics. The 1994 Jean-Claude Van Damme adaptation of Street Fighter and 1995's Mortal Kombat. And I know people are hearing this now and they're like, oh my God, I cannot believe you are tackling such...
Those movies are masterpieces.
Such auteur, pieces of cinema. I know it's going to be tough, but, but we'll find a way. Won't we? But I was
come down the rabbit hole with this.
I was just so excited when you not only did you mention having seen those movies, but being so enthusiastic.
Dude, those are two of my favorite movies, as cheesy and ridiculous as they are. I love them to death.
And I've got good news because when I listed those in the Slack, because I listed a bunch of movies, I was like, all right, guys, so who wants to talk about what? Just let me know. And Blue Lemons said, after giving me her choices, then she went back and she was like, wait a second, how did I miss Street Fighter and Mortal Kombat? So she's going to be joining us for those.
Awesome.
So it's going to be a party.
Shenanigans are scheduled.
Yep. So I just have to figure out exactly when we're doing those. I'm gonna harass people at Ice and Fire Con to see who I can get to do what movie, and then we'll work out a schedule. But
don't harass people.
It's like if you're my friend, you'll come on my channel. No, so Dan, you working on anything right now?
A little bit, yeah. So if you follow my channel, you may have noticed I'm not doing a whole lot these days at the moment. I am planning a comeback, but it's difficult. I'm trying to manage a lot of different things in my life. I've just started a new job, so I am kind of working full time again, and I don't have as much time for content creation as I used to. That being said, yeah, I'm working on a video at the moment on Tolkien's influence over Dungeons and Dragons, and also some of the kind of legal implications of that have come about over the years. So that's kind of an interesting niche topic that I don't think a lot of people have covered before on YouTube. So I thought it might be interesting to look at, especially with the D&D movie that's just come out. It seems like good timing for that topic. And yeah, I'm doing a lot of writing, but I've got stuff in the works. I've got a long video on Tom Bombadil that I want to release at some point, but it's going to be very long. It's going to be video essay, an hour and a half long, probably.
Nice.
Because it's I just started writing about Tom Bombadil and I couldn't stop. And
it'd be like that sometimes.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm working on things, but I don't really have anything scheduled to come out in imminently. So
cool.
That's what's going on.
I know somebody in particular who will be excited about any D&D related content. Mm-hmm. Actually, I know a few people, but I know one person in particular. But yeah, no. So that's great, and. Yeah, so I'm trying to think. I don't think I have anything else. No, just make sure you guys come back in 2 weeks as I talk about the Batman. All right, so let's go ahead and dive back into Star Trek Picard.
Indeed.
Okay, so who haven't we talked? Well, we did talk a little bit about Data, but I'd love to get into the stuff with his, as he reemerges and, the different personalities that we get. Obviously, I'm so happy that in the end, Data wins out, but, we get some fun stuff with lore. Mm-hmm. And I just, he's got that great, moment of villainy where they think they've got him his motor functions off, but then things start going haywire, and then oh no, he just walks up to the door giving the evil glare, and it's like, no, you guys can't outsmart him.
I thought the whole them having Laura come back also was pretty interesting. I really did like that final battle between the two of them, and it just shows that Laura, he's always just lived in the moment of chaos. Like the extra long con, that could never be his game because he doesn't know how to see that far ahead. He just wants the instant satisfaction of stopping his brother or erasing him or whatever. And you aren't as clever as you thought you were because your brother outsmarted you and because he played to your ego.
It was really good to get some closure on him because the last time we saw him was in the two-parter Descent, which was the end of season 6 and start of season 7, and I didn't feel a sense of closure on his storyline there. So I'm glad they brought that back, and that was well handled.
Yeah, I have to admit, initially because I feared Data just wouldn't want to overpower Lore just because it seems like more in Data's nature to.
Well, he couldn't. Geordi says it, doesn't he? It's against his ethical programming to take a life, so he literally can't kill his brother.
So, and where I thought like they were going with it until the very last minute was that sort of a version of what happened, which was that by Lore taking, parts of Data that they basically, joined together as one, and but Data's kind of in the driver's seat. I thought what they were going to do instead was kind of that Lore was taking these parts of Data, so we were going to get Lore, but with enough of Data's influence that it kind of softened him a bit, but it would actually be the character of Lore, and he would have an impulse to help the crew. And I thought, well, that's an interesting way maybe to play it. But then, of course, at the end, we get that, no, it's actually just kind of, Data's, setting him up, and he finds his, like, Achilles heel there. And so they join together in a true sense. And so it's like into a, sort of perfect union the way that he was intended to be. So I was just delighted that it worked out that way and you wanted to have Data be there throughout the ending of the season and have it be really him. And yeah, I loved, speaking of Lore and that picture that I put up a couple minutes ago, I loved that moment when Geordi is standing there and like this is he feels like this is his only chance to actually tell Data all the things that he's been sort of holding in, and telling him how much he means to him, and I just feel so happy for LeVar Burton that he gets to deliver all of that without a freaking visor on. That he gets to use the full range of his acting abilities, and he must have just ate that opportunity up because I thought it was so emotional, and and again, it's like this is what this crew deserved, to be able to like go all out and really get these emotions out, because we didn't get we just didn't get it with the especially with Nemesis as the final movie. Like
they should have made more movies with the TNG class, and arguably also with the Voyager cast. It's a lot that they could have done. One key thing in the memory swap that they were doing that I really liked was Data still has that holofigure of Tasha Yar.
Yes.
In his memories, and that was like one of his favorite, most treasured memories. I thought that was really cool that they remembered to put that in.
He has the line later on in the scene where he is talking about Spot as well, and we see Spot, and he says, it's almost a miracle, but I'm paraphrasing here, but it's almost a miracle. But this tiny creature taught me how to love. And me being me, I thought, what did Tasha teach you?
I mean,
we know what happened there.
I mean,
arguably to love also. If only they, you know what, that would have been a really good cameo. If they would have brought, I mean, obviously they couldn't bring back Tasha, but if they could have gotten the Sela character to come in that she played later on, that would have been, I think that should have worked.
She would have made sense in season 1, where the Romulans were very prominent in season 1 of Picard. I would have liked to have seen her there. I think that was a missed opportunity, actually.
I'm just saying, like, now that Data is like fully, or at least as close as possible to fully human, what his first priority is, after the mission is over.
Blame the man though? Like, he's literally been stuck in a top secret meat locker for the better part of the past 2-3 decades.
It's like he's going up to his buddies being like, all right, let's have a night out.
I mean, they're kind of having that. That's kind of how they ended.
Yeah.
Like, the only other thing that I think they should have added in for that last scene is Guinan should have been there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was... Sure. Yeah, because she wasn't in this season, which I thought was kind of surprising, given that she had been in season 2. And I think the production schedule for seasons 2 and 3 were actually really like one right after the other. So I thought it was a little weird, but that's okay. Like,
well, the other character that we didn't see, a lot of people have been saying this, was the what's her name? The Romulan character who we did see in the first episode. We never saw her at the end, which was felt jarring in her absence, because she's Picard's partner, we're led to believe at this point.
Yeah, and like
that's right.
I can feel in my head that there is a year gap, so it's like presumably he he's with it, but the fact that we didn't see her at all,
right?
Laris, that's it.
It did feel weird, because it's like, okay, I know like this season has like fully transformed into the next generation, by the end of the season, but still, like, this is also season 3 of Picard, and she was in the beginning of the season, and like to me, I would have liked to see her appearance, but at the same time, with as much stuff as they were throwing in the last episode, I also get why she's not, but I would have liked a little closure on her character, and just at least an indication of that. Yeah, obviously Picard will, in my mind, obviously he goes meet up with her and they're together, but we don't get an indication of that in the actual episode. So
one more omission that was kind of I can't really complain about what we got. I'm not disappointed, because we got to see the main cast of TNG all together again. But so with that caveat, obviously, we could and maybe ought to have seen Janeway at the end, and we didn't see her.
I was wondering why she wasn't there either.
So there's a story behind that. It's just money, I think. Basically, they couldn't afford her. They had her in the script, and I think Tuvok took her role basically in the end, because Kate Mulgrew's expensive, and the producers just said to the writers, "Look, we can't afford this. This is not the MCU. We can't have cameos from everybody. You need to be realistic here." So they brought in Tuvok, which was a fine choice, because Tim Russ is great, and it was great to see him. But
I would have also actually liked to see if Chakotay came back, and how a conversation between him and Seven might end up.
They actually offered to have him come back in season 2 in Chakotay, and this just came out quite recently, I think, that he turned it down, because they were going to have him play the husband in the alternate timeline, the fascist timeline where 7 of 9 is president of the evil Federation, they were going to have Chakotay come in as her husband in that timeline, but he didn't want to play an evil version of the character, so he didn't want to do it.
Okay.
But yeah,
that would have been a perfect tie-in for it, though. Nice.
Janeway and Chakotay are both in Star Trek Prodigy, which is the other animated series that's on at the moment, which I haven't seen, but I've been meaning to get around to that.
It's so funny. I'm usually always adverse, not always, but often I'm adverse to just bringing in a bunch of cameos, but like that's what they were doing with this, and it all felt very genuine. So, and even though I haven't seen Voyager, it would have been nice for, just because of all the Seven stuff, to have Janeway there. And like, I would have loved to see, like, hell, bring Quark, bring
Quark and Rom.
Yeah, bring Bashir. I would have loved to see Alexander Siddig.
Doran Martell.
There was another announcement recently. There's so much Star Trek coming out these days. It's great. There was another announcement recently where the Michelle Yeoh's character from Discovery is going to be doing I think straight to TV or straight to streaming movie based on Section 31.
That could be very fantastic.
So that could be really spicy, because she's obviously great, and there's a lot of potential for doing interesting espionage storylines in the Star Trek universe. And I thought it would be cool, because this is a spoiler. I don't want to spoil this for John. John, cover your ears a second, because he hasn't seen all of Discovery. There's so in the the most recent season of Discovery, she time travels back to some point, we don't know when, but she has to, because they time travel to the 31st century or something in the start of season 3, and then she ends up coming back. So what if she goes back to the 25th century, to the Picard timeline, and this movie is set in that timeline, and she rejoins Section 31 at that point, and then they bring in Bashir in that movie? Wouldn't that be awesome? Because that was his arc in DS9, was the Section 31 stuff, Okay.
Interesting.
John, you're good.
Okay.
Sorry, I'm just taking over your channel for a second. Hijacking the... I know you're watching Discovery, so I didn't want to spoil the whole thing for you, but...
No, that's good. That's in truth, that's how I determine, like, who I ask onto the channel. Is like, who's going to be the most talkative and might take over the channel, so I don't have to say anything at all. No, like, when AR used to be my co-host on here, like, I told her constantly, like, the best thing about having you as my co-host is because I don't have to worry about talking because she would always fill in those quiet, the empty spaces between. So
indeed, she is quite good at that.
Yeah.
For a quick second, while I was watching and listening to the voice of the Borg Queen, I almost expected the camera to pan around and that was going to be Janeway. I don't know why that would have happened, but the cadence of the actress's voice, it sounded a lot like Kate Mulgrew to me.
No, that was Alice Krita who did the voice of the Borg Queen in First Contact.
Yeah, she didn't play the like H.R. Geiger Borg Queen that we got in that scene, because that was a body double that did that. But yeah, she did the voice. I recognized the voice straight away. I don't know. They could have had Alice Krieger do it, really.
Well, they said that they didn't, because she is older now, and they didn't want to put her into all of the heavy prosthetics and everything. So I understand that part of it, but still, like, they could have figured out a way through, like, if they can put in like Winter Soldier, if they can put Haley Atwell's face onto like an older woman's body and mix it together. Like, I think they could have figured this out, but
what happened to I forget what her name is, but the chick that basically she was like the guy on, quote unquote, the guy on the wall. I think it was like the edge of the neutral zone, where she came through and said that she was going to stand there and make sure some bad thing was gonna
Agnes
happen.
Girardi, Dr. Girardi from season 1 and 2. Yeah, that was just a plot thread that they just didn't elaborate on.
Yeah, they never continued that.
Yeah,
I had to read up on that, because I guess the thing with that is apparently it's another Borg faction.
Yeah,
presumably, because the way it felt to me watching this season was like, oh, they're just pretending like none of that ever happened.
Yeah,
they kind of did forget about that a little bit. Yeah, and it wasn't brought up in season 3 at all.
Which
Beverly even has a line where she says, "We haven't heard from the Borg in 10 years," and I'm like, "Did you not?" Well, you've been missing for a while, so maybe you didn't watch season 2, but.
But my read on that, I was like, maybe they know that the majority of fans didn't care about that particular bit of continuity.
I reckon that plot thread will be picked up elsewhere somewhere along the line, because it has to.
Yeah, I will say that felt a little weird to me, because I was like, especially since the production of these 2 seasons was back to back. It's like, what? Really? But that's fine. Like, I kept saying, like, okay, so that's a little less than perfect, but there's so much that is just like overwhelmingly amazing about this season. Don't get consumed with plot continuity for all that. But I'm sure in future Trek they could perfectly explain that in a way that would be satisfactory.
Hopefully they bring it back.
Yeah.
I want to highlight a little bit about Dr. Crusher at especially during that final episode where they figure out if you take out the transponder, then the beacon that it self-destructs pretty much the whole ship. And while they're going through and the clock starts ticking and they're making the plans and whatnot, I'm looking like, hold on, universe. How many times are y'all going to break Beverly Crusher's heart? Like, she's already lost one husband. Her other son is gone off doing his traveler things. Picard apparently is about to die now. And her other son is about... Can we stop hurting Beverly Crusher, please?
Does Wesley not drop in on her now and again?
I don't think so. It doesn't seem so.
Dinner, or like, could he not, say hello once in a while? Does he send her Christmas cards? Like, I don't know.
I don't think he does. I mean, because like the way she explained it is, Wesley wanted to go out to the stars, so I supported him. I let him go do what he had to do, and it seems like that was pretty final. Like, she's lost him. Like, he's probably never been back. And now, as a result, she held Jack way too tight to where she missed things that I know. I think a lot of people would want to say that it's not her fault because she didn't see it. But if anyone would have noticed that something's off, it was going to be Beverly Crusher. Like, her brain is multitudes of greatness and how she analyzes things. I think if she would have pulled back a little bit more and really started questioning more than she already was while we were finding out that, Starfleet Command's being taken over and whatnot, I think she would have noticed it. But it's the perfect breadcrumb that the Borg did, because it's really because of that disease that Picard thinks he has. So she automatically in her brain, she's just attributing it to that and not looking any further. But I also got to wonder if Jack told her about all of the symptoms here, because it seems like the hearing all those voices and the red door and whatnot, it took Deanna to bring that out of him. I don't think Beverly knew that. I could be misreading that whole thing, though. It's possible.
Yeah, I will say, like, and hats off to, and this would have been majorly different if I had been watching this show probably week to week and had been then following on social media, because I'm sure that Trek fans had cracked that the Borg were involved in all this, but
there were different theories.
But that kind of floored me, and it's funny because when they were hypothesizing that, what the Changelings wanted was a Picard double, and that's why they had his body and stuff. I was sitting there, I was like, yeah, that's kind of lame. And then so when it turned out to be so much bigger and so much more insidious, and it was this major, Borg plot line, and I was like, oh, that's what we were building towards.
My early season. My early season theory was that it might have been the Par-Wraiths from DS9 because of the whole red glowing eye thing, which kind of felt a bit Par-Wraithy, and might have made some sense for them to team up with the Changelings, since they're both the major villains in DS9, basically, along with the Cardassians, but no one cares about them. And then, so halfway through the season, I kind of pivoted to Borg being the theory, because I was like, it's probably going to be the Borg, because this show has dealt with the Borg every season. We've had Borg stuff all 3 seasons, and sort of feels like the main TNG villain that you'd want to wrap it up with. And then by the episode 7, with a few lines that we get between Vadic, who we haven't talked about yet.
Oh my God, how have we not talked about Vadic?
Shit. And 7 of 9, when Vadic says to 7 of 9, oh, it's very fitting that you are here, I was like, oh, okay, it's definitely the Borg then. So yeah, they kind of played the mystery box card pretty well this season, actually, because it was quite well crafted, and it was maybe strung out for slightly too long for my taste, but it was well done.
Indeed.
But yeah, let's talk about Vadic, because
my God,
Amanda Plummer absolutely
knocked it out the park.
Yes, and I've only seen her, I think, in Pulp Fiction, where she plays Honey Bunny. She plays Tim Roth's girlfriend.
Wow!
I don't think I've seen her in anything else. I may have, but
I'm sure I've seen her in other things, but that's obviously the major thing that jumps out. But it's so funny just seeing her in that, and then seeing her in this, where she is. Oh my God, what a great villain! And and she could have been even if they hadn't done the Borg thing, she could have been the big bad for the whole. The season, and
she carried the villain role for the most part of the season, and there was the whole thing with her answering to somebody else who was a sort of floating head thing, which was a bit odd. And then I think we still didn't really know who that was, but I'm assuming that was the Borg Queen. And
and it was so gruesome, just the whole thing with.
It looked like a weirdo blob and whatnot. Hold on, who has the power to even do that? I think up until right then and there, I didn't even put together that all of those crew and she were changelings.
Yeah, I think that's when I was like, oh wait, so is she a changeling?
Christopher Plummer's daughter.
That's right. Yeah, I knew that.
Yeah, I was actually.
That's cool. I didn't know that. That's cool.
I was going to ask about that if she was related to him, because that's just, I mean, chef's kiss.
Indeed.
Just to have it, and he was very much that type in Undiscovered Country of sitting in the chair and just commanding, having this commanding presence, and he even spins around in the chair at one point, and she just commanded the screen in this. And then of course when she gets to, I forget when it is, episode 6 or 7 or whatever, when she's telling her story, and it's just oh man, she just and again she goes out around that time, and the episode after that, but man, what a great moment for her just to show off her acting chops, and she was just one of the most fascinating parts of this season.
She loves the smoke, doesn't she? Which I found cool, and I appreciate the person. The scene where she's smoking one up on the Titan bridge and looking up at the dome through the stars. What a great shot.
I wonder where that habit even formed. Because you would think a changeling couldn't smoke, but
it looks cool.
They've been altered. Yeah, I mean they're like enhanced changelings now.
Which no, that's gonna be taken out of context. It does not look cool, kids. But in make believe on screen, it's a cool looking aesthetic, but it is not a cool activity. Now, yeah, God, just so amazing, and oh my God, and she's just so good at at playing them. And what I was just talking about, the fact that the Picard and all of them have their theory as to like what Vadic's plan is, and what the changelings are up to. And I love how he says, we know what you're doing. We know you need my body for this, and that. And she just like doesn't betray anything, where inside she's got to be going, you goddamn idiot. You don't have a clue what we're doing.
When they were on that bridge scene, right when Jack revealed that he could jump into other folks and have them do something, I was thinking it would be better for him to jump in 7, because not only would it not be as hard because she's used to that, and she would immediately be able to pick that up, because the board single is messing with her too. She's just equipped enough to expel it and not be drawn in like everyone else. But if she would have been at that console, her hands would have been going a lot faster.
I think there might be an explanation for that, because they obviously when the Borg plot is revealed, we're told that his signal that he carries in his mind doesn't work on people over 25 because they're too developed, because their cognitive functions are fully developed at that age in humans. So I assumed that he couldn't control older members of the crew, which is why he went into one of the junior officers on the bridge.
Interesting. Yeah. I do remember that part. I think I just excluded 7 from that because she already has the disposition to do that. But yeah, that would explain it.
She might have figured out that it was a Borg signal as well if he had tried. So that might have jumped the gun plot-wise for him to do that. But
and I loved that as a conceit, like the idea that the younger generation were the ones who are susceptible, and so of course it's the older crew that has to save the day.
Yeah.
Convenient. Oh, Troy's line where she's like, "I've never been overjoyed to see so many wrinkles."
So many wrinkles. I was like, you know what? Damn it, Deanna, you're still my favorite.
She's great at comedy, Marina Sirtis, actually.
Yeah, she really is.
And let's actually talk about her for a bit, because and I know I was reading something online where I guess people were getting concerned because it was getting later in the season and we hadn't gotten much with her. But when she does show up, like she
lives in London. She lives in London, so it's harder for her to spend that much time filming in LA.
Yeah. But no, she had some really great stuff just with the stuff with Jack, and then again I gotta bring up the Riker War choice. That's never gonna get old for me. But yeah, no, I was really glad to see that everybody got their moment to shine. And actually what was nice was that by sort of by spreading out the times in which various crew members came onto the season, you got to have everybody gets their moment along the way.
Yeah.
And you get to spend certain, like, Worf comes onto the ship, and then, a couple episodes later you get Geordi, and then, so forth and so on. And so I just thought that worked really well for making sure that everybody had their moment to shine, and then they all get together, and then, and then of course there's that, we really then get, the last big addition to, the crew that arrives, which of course is the Enterprise D. How are you guys feeling when that happened? Because I was just grinning like an idiot.
So ecstatic. I was so ecstatic. I was like, "Oh my god, we're going home!" Like, that bridge, man. My first adventures in the Star Trek verse were with the Next Generation crew on that bridge.
I
I
saw the original bridge in person, like a recreation of it, basically. But I think with some of the original props in London when I was very young, and that memory has stuck with me. They had uniforms and stuff as well, but the bridge and the props and the set and everything being there was, it's quite incredible, and it's just, it feels like coming home. I remember the bridge better than I remember like the house where I grew up as a child, it's so it's, you can't help yourself. It's a wellspring of emotion seeing that on screen again. And the only thing I'll say is the color grading made it seem very yellow, but it's it's such a great piece of set design as well. Like that. I like the bridge on Voyager. The bridge on Voyager is great too. But nowadays they all seem very glossy, and Picard has the line where he says that what I really miss is the carpet. And I know it's played for a joke, but like the carpet makes a difference. It just brightens up everything. It's just great set design, and it's it's so nice to see it again. And they nailed it as well. Everything was perfect about it. I don't think any like corner of the set was wrong. And they recreated it largely, which must have cost a fortune.
Yeah, it's like, you want to know why we didn't get Kate Mulgrew? It's because of the
right,
rebuilding the Enterprise. Which, that's the way to go. And like I was watching a little tour of the set they did for this, and I noticed like watching the Next Generation, but I really took in the detail the fact that like that console, like it's wood. And like there's just something so incredibly wonderfully retro about that. Just where all the new stuff is all sleek metal and all that stuff, and it's just
the chairs look so comfortable.
Yeah, they do.
I'm glad we're talking about this because the Enterprise itself is a character, I think, in the show, and
indeed
to sell that. I also love the line that Worf has here, where he's the only dude there who's just like not that moved by the whole thing. Like, I prefer the weapon systems on the Enterprise E.
and then Troy goes, "What?"
Troy turned around, looked at him like, "Bruh."
and he goes, "It is perfect.
It is perfect." Like once again, the Worf husband is right there. Can you stop trying to flirt with this woman, please?
And then of course when they go into the board cube and Data's like, I can do this, and then they're going, and Troy's like, what does she say? Well, why am I
sensing happiness
or fun or something like that?
Joy,
enjoyment.
Yeah. Enjoyment. And then you just showed
Data. Brent Spiner smiling.
His face is
playing,
he looks like he's playing a video game.
He is in the best VR session of the world right here. That was really cool to see.
Yeah.
Oh God. And really, when you get right down to like, that was like, I was even though like I want to I want to rewatch the season again as quickly as possible to get like the details of the various plot threads, because they threw a lot of stuff at us, and I wasn't always catching everything, so it's like just go with it. I'll figure out the details of that on a rewatch. But what sold this season so beautifully was just, man, it's this cast, it's these characters, and I always felt like they had their eye on the ball as far as making sure that that was front and center. And I just, so many times, and we talked about this in the, in our Twitter message chat, where, so many times I was just, giggling practically, watching, especially the last couple episodes. And it just, and it's funny because it kind of, it's weird to say it snuck up on me how much I care about this crew, because I've been following for so long. I was not one of the people who like originally watched TNG like when it was on TV. I think the first time I ever saw that this crew was in Star Trek Generations, and so I had more grown up with the original cast on the first 6 films. So in a way, it almost has caught me by surprise, like how much I deeply love these characters. Even though like First Contact is my favorite Trek movie of all time, so I don't even know why I'm saying that, but it's strange. And then watching this, I realized how emotionally affected I've been by this crew, because as we were watching all this stuff unfold, and just those little moments sprinkled throughout, and where you get to see that these people love each other so much, and
that shines through, man. Like the more than any other cast in any of the shows, in any of the generations of Trek that we've gotten over like 70 years, this cast is like a real family. Like these people see each other often, and they hang out, and they've worked together on other projects, and they stay in touch really, and they feel like a family off screen, and that really shines through. And that you can't professionally like fake that as easily as when you've got that naturally. Like these people love each other. There's I recently rewatched it. There's a web series that Brent Spiner did about 10 years ago it was I think they were trying to like drop it to networks and stuff. It was like a sitcom where he played himself, and there's an episode of that where they bring in Brent Spiner just as like a cameo. I'll send you guys it because it's hilarious.
Nice.
And it's like you can tell that they just like prat about and like off camera all the time, and just love each other and hang out and have fun. Every other cast in Star Trek has, story wise, like they have their little family groups, like within the different crews, and we've talked a bit about DS9. There's like the Ferengi crew where they feel like a little family group, and then there's like Bashir and O'Brien and Keiko and that little family group, and then you've got a Cisco and Penny Johnson Gerald's character and Jake and so on. There's like little groups within the group, whereas this, like the TNG crew, are just they're just wonderful friends off camera, and that really I keep saying it. I'm just going to repeat it for the sake of the rhetoric. It shines through how much these people love each other, and I think that's what we got here at the end. It's so moving. I said it to you in our Twitter thread. Like on the whole, Star Trek is more of a cerebral, intellectual experience for me. I appreciate the philosophical issues that it raises. I appreciate the progressive tone of the show from the start, even though there are problems. Go back through it, but the 60s was the 60s. They didn't, necessarily have in retrospect, the best, but they had the best intentions. And so Star Trek has always had that. And so it's always been, for me, it's always been a more of a philosophical, intellectual experience. But when it does get you, it really gets you, Star Trek. And yeah, this last episode I had feels like almost nothing else I've watched like in years. And
Yeah,
that's
there's
not
a really. I'm sorry. No, finish up.
no, go ahead. I've talked a lot. Yeah.
No, there's just as you listen to all that, the one key thing that stood out is out of all of the ships that, and if I remember, correct me if I'm wrong, but this ship is a generational ship. Like it's literally built to hold families during the voyage. So all of that just mixes in together and just makes it even better when this crew comes back together.
That was a big part of Picard's arc as well, and maybe we should finish on him since this is his show. Because you remember the first episode, the pilot episode of TNG, where Picard meets Riker for the first time and takes him to one side, and he says, "One more thing, number one, I want you to maintain a respectable image for me in front of children. I'm not good with children. I don't agree with families being on board the Enterprise, and I'm not comfortable with this. So please help me here," kind of thing. I'm butchering the lines, but essentially that's the message that he gets across to Riker there. And you think about his journey in Picard, how he deals with some of his demons in his own family life, and forges a new relationship with somebody new, and then finds out he has a son, and so that really kind of like focuses his journey. That was brought up in Generations as well, and in the episode that we've talked about before, where we meet his brother after the Borg invasion, and so that's always been really key to his story. And so to bring both of his families together, his found family in Starfleet, and his son, the next generation, literally, was really powerful. And
it's so it's when you look at the full range of his arc from beginning of TNG to now, it's a remarkable just transformation. And like that has been one of the really nice things about this show, and why, like, I think I was definitely too unfair when I started the first episode of this season, because I thought, oh well, they're just turning it into TNG for the final season, and to a certain degree it's kind of short, but I think they really did keep the mission statement of this specific show, was to really delve into Picard like deep and to deal with his issues, and they expanded that to the rest of that crew, of like seeing that they're not the same people that they were on TNG, and to explore how they've changed, and to explore some deeper issues. And they did that in particular with Picard this season in the most personal way possible, just with his son, his child, and to him seeing like his son go through basically the embodiment of his nightmare, the thing that, as he says, he's been running from for so many years. And I just thought it was absolutely brilliant the way they and I know not everybody was pleased with like the show overall in terms of its first 2 seasons, but you know what they always say, it's good to start well, but it's better to end well. And dear God, I can't imagine a better ending than what we got in this season. So
yeah, I agree, it was great. And I really liked how you just said Picard isn't good with kids, but here now he's stepping up, because he don't want to do nothing with the Borg. He does not want them inside his head again, but he links in and connects because he realizes that's the only way he's going to be able to get to his son and bring him back out. So this is Picard actually putting on the daddy hat finally and getting his shit together, for lack of a better word. And I do believe we were given just the small Easter egg that him and Crusher are now actually married, judging from the picture that kid, what the hell is the kid's name?
I mean,
Jack.
I wouldn't
Jack,
feel
yeah.
I wouldn't really feel good about that because so what's her character's name again?
Laris?
Laris, because I thought that
I didn't get that from that at all. I mean that picture that Jack puts in the picture frame and moves in that scene, that stinger scene at the end, is an old publicity photo from like 1989. So it's yeah, that's like actually from an award ceremony that Patrick Stewart went to with the cast. So it's I assume it's like an old photo of them both, and I wouldn't take that as confirmation that they are now together. I think it's a headcanon thing, basically. If you want to imagine that they reignited that relationship, then I think that's on you. But I don't know. I
mean, if we see them again in a new show, maybe they actually talk about it. I don't know.
Yeah, well, I think we will almost certainly see Jack again at some point, and when we do, I think we'll get some answers, maybe. But
do you? Yeah, think...
no, I had just naturally assumed that after the end of season 2 and the start of the season that Jean-Luc and Laris were together now, but so maybe that was just my reading on it, but I thought that was kind of what was implied. But who knows, maybe we will find out for sure in a future show.
Do you guys think that Jack still has his mutant abilities?
That's an interesting question. I mean, Q must have an interest in him for a reason other than just being Picard's son. Although that might be enough. But
I was going to say with Q, I think that's enough.
Mm-hmm. I would say if we do see him again in a spin-off, I think maybe they'll tone it down a bit. Like maybe he'll have some kind of residual abilities but I don't imagine that he'll be able to literally take people over in the same way. Would be my guess. Is where I would go as a writer. But I don't know.
I just remembered Beverly came up with that transporter fix to get that stuff out of them, so it's highly possible she did the same with Jack too.
That's true. Yeah, she may have done. Yeah, you'd probably try to block that from happening again in case the Borg are still out there, because the Borg seem to always come back, and certainly on a meta level, if another writer wants to use the Borg as a villain again, they will find a way.
I would be surprised if they didn't go the route of Troy basically removing that from, not Troy, Beverly removing that from him as well, because I don't see Starfleet being that eager about bringing somebody on board who can just anytime he wants control people's thoughts. They might have had some issues with that.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, because they did put him on the fast track to command.
I wonder what Q's interest in him is, though, because so we had the revelation that Q is not dead, at least not in a strictly non-linear sense. Maybe we will get a justification for Picard's interest in for Q's interest in Picard, and maybe the events of season 2 in particular, in a future spin-off show, because I think the implication is that Q time traveled back from a future point in order to initiate the events of season 2.
Wouldn't put it past them.
And so they could write an interesting sort of paradox storyline with Q and Picard and Jack Crusher. I don't know.
I have no idea what they've got planned with Q, because Q is, to me, he's always like I have a handle on where a story is going, and then Q shows up. I'm like, oh, son of a bitch, god damn it, what the hell are you doing now?
if Shenanigans was an entity, it would be Q.
Q, do you enjoy Q as a character, John? Because there's a ton of him in Voyager as well, so you might enjoy that.
Oh yeah, he did not know how to stay away because he had a crush on Janeway.
Yes,
Of course he did.
He's actually weirdly like casually misogynistic with Janeway, which kind of bothers me a bit actually.
But I'm not really.
It's a strange dynamic with him.
I'm not really like. That doesn't surprise me, like for Q as a character, anyway. Though.
No, it's in character. But,
yeah.
Oh, it's not in character. That's why he kind of tried to make Janeway be his babysitter for a little while too.
Mm-hmm.
So I won't explain that because you haven't watched it, Jan. But you'll see when you get there.
To answer your question, Dan, I honestly don't know if I enjoy Q as a character. It's always kind of up in the air for me because
I know what you mean.
Because I always have this like physical reaction to when he shows up. I'm like, God damn it! But then I still enjoy watching him on screen. It's like, and John Delancey is just so damn good.
You know, one of my favorite, I think actually probably my favorite thing of a captain trying to deal with Q was Deep Space Nine. He came over there and tried to do that same nonsense, and Cisco was like, "Nah, bruh," and punched him dead in the face. Q has never been back to DS9. He was like, "Oh, you're no fun."
Picard never punched me. Well, I'm not Picard.
Exactly. You do not come into Cisco's house and pull none of that bullshit. He will not stand for it.
Which I want to close out this stream by, I think, I don't know that there's much more gushing to be done. I mean, I'm sure there could be, but like, obviously we just loved what was done to give the next generation crew their send-off. So I have a question for you guys. Naturally, it comes into my head like there's no limit to what they might be willing to do. Do you want to see obviously we think we're going to get a continuation of this time period for, certain characters in this show.
Mm-hmm.
My mind does go to the possibilities for DS9 though. Do you guys think that we might get something that continues that on?
Well, probably we're going to get something with 7 of 9 as captain of the renamed Titan, the Enterprise G now. So I would imagine we'll get more Voyager stuff if we get her as the lead in a show.
I think so too.
But I'm with you. I would love to see more DS9 too. So maybe we'll get a kind of mishmash of a bit of both in a spin-off, which would be interesting. Maybe they do a plot line where we meet, Grand Nagus Rom, or we have, although I suppose that would be hard to do without Aaron Eisenberg now.
Rest in peace to Nog.
Yeah, I would love more stuff with more, what they're calling legacy characters. I would love to see more of that, and it'd be great to see Cisco again. Apart from anything else, just because,
absolutely.
I was actually going to ask if you know any more about that than I do, because I guess I haven't followed.
I think he's retired from acting. Avery Brooks doesn't act anymore.
I haven't seen him in anything.
I think he teaches now, or maybe he's retired from that too. But I think he's.
I just wasn't sure if if something had ever been said about what potentially happened to Cisco, or is the character just never has there never been anything about the character after the end of DS9? Is it just kind of
nope? Well, I think there's a comic book plot line that's come out recently, because I haven't read it, but I only know this because my phone keeps telling me things about Star Trek, and I keep when I open a new tab on my phone browser, I just get Star Trek stuff every time, and Lord of the Rings, of course. So there's some kind of comic book that's out at the moment involving him, but there's no alpha canon about him.
I know that they did a DS9 documentary a while ago, and they went through and like were detailing like a potential like season 8 their premiere and stuff, and I just remember watching that and being like, God, I wish I could see that. But
I would
yeah.
like to see maybe a Section 31 plot of some, I don't know, random nefarious deed, and Seven, of course, being the captain, she's heading that storyline. But then we get, some more cameos from Voyager, namely Lana Torres is like first in my head because she's a wizard in the engineering department, and I don't know how Section 31 would connect to them, but I was kind of hoping to see species. What the hell is it again?
8472.
Species. Yeah. Because as soon as I saw the Borg in there, I'm like, okay, wait. There is a species out there that can totally get to the Borg, but they're in the Delta Quadrant, so they're not going to show up here. But I would fancy another adventure in the Delta Quadrant where they actively have to go and work with species 8472.
Yeah, maybe they could do something where there is like a new, faster starship drive system that enables them to travel more of the galaxy, and they're thereby enabling them to revisit places in the Delta Quadrant and the Gamma Quadrant again. And that could be a way that you could merge both of those different disparate plot threads in those two different shows, because the Gamma Quadrant and the Delta Quadrant were both explored in those shows.
They were, and also I would like to go explore fluidic space, where species 8472 is actually from. I think that would be interesting, but they'd have to do a lot, I think, to make that work. So it probably won't happen.
It'd be nice to see an updated CGI version of them, because the CGI, the 90s CGI of 8472 is iffy.
It's a little bit hinky.
It hasn't aged well, has it?
It's a little hinky.
But yeah, I think that, thinking about it now, I think they'll really be able to tackle a lot of this stuff under the banner of, if they move ahead with the show that they're tentatively referring to as Star Trek Legacy. That feels like a banner under which they could bring back certain characters.
I desperately hope they don't use that title for real. I think that's just a Twitter working title for it.
Okay.
But,
well, regardless of what they end up with, I could see them, like, in the spirit of what they did this season, Picard bringing in characters from other shows, and mixing up elements from Voyager and DS9. Like, I don't see them resisting in one of these shows bringing Quark back. I mean,
who I think could be really interesting, and maybe additions to the crew, but the grown up Mazadi, Ribi, and Azan, who are the Borg kids found on Voyager, because we know what happened to Egypt, sadly. But those other three, they were all shipped off someplace else.
That is
I would
true.
like to see them come back for something.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, that could be interesting. Yeah, there was that whole colony of Borg that Chakotay encounters as well in season 3, where they were just sort of trying to rebuild, and then they form a new collective, don't they, at the end of the episode?
I believe so.
Voyager.
Is that where we saw Hugh?
No, that was.
Am I thinking? No, I think I'm thinking a later TNG.
Yeah, that's the episode that I mentioned earlier on, where we see Lore, where we see Hugh again as well. There was that planet that Chakotay crash lands on, and that was before Seven of Nine joins the crew, as when we first meet the Borg in the Delta Quadrant.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
So they were
Tertiary agent of Unimatrix Zero. I love Seven.
yeah, I can tell.
But yeah, like, and I will say, there's just so many different Star Trek shows now that I'm trying together. But now I really want to, and I know, like, yeah, and you guys are not the first people I've heard say this, that, you know, Voyager is by no means, you know, perfect, and there's you know, but I do really want to watch it just to know the story of those characters, and because I just feel like that's going to contribute even more to the feels of not just this show, but, you know, wherever they take Seven in particular.
Voyager is a funny one. It definitely does have its ups and downs, and it's got some great individual episodes that are just really good, and I've rewatched often. And then it's also got some like epically bad episodes, as most of the shows do. But Voyager's bad episodes are also hilarious, so they're also fun to rewatch. Like unintentionally hilarious episodes of Voyager are a little bit of a guilty pleasure sometimes.
Sometimes, indeed. I do concur.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure it'll be more than worth it, just because, yeah, like we've said, I feel like all the Trek shows have kind of had their ups and downs. It's just kind of the way it goes. But I'll take this opportunity also to do my sort of another side of my geekiness, which is to say that I'm, you know, slamming my fist down on the table, not really because it won't hold that much, but I really want DS9 and especially, and it seems natural, Voyager to be remastered on Blu-ray like TNG was. Yeah. Because like DS9 I love so much, and they remastered like some clips to use in that documentary I was talking about, and it looks gorgeous. So I wish to God
how great those battle scenes would be.
Yeah.
They did such a good job of it as well, you know. There's so many shows where they've remastered it and made it like letterbox 16:9 and just ruined it. And I'm so glad they didn't do that with TNG. They upscaled it and made it and used the original footage to do that, and just kept the aspect ratio and kept redid the special effects really brilliantly. And yeah, just it looks gorgeous. I'm totally with you, man. I'm rewatching DS9 with Kate at the moment, and we're in coming up to halfway through season 3, and it does look not so good these days. Like the art direction is still brilliant, and you can tell that kind of the craft that went into it still, but it just doesn't look great on a high resolution modern screen.
But yeah, it's like when you compare how TNG looked, you know, years ago versus when they remastered it, it's such night and day. And then, you know, you just imagine, oh my God, what could DS9 look like? And it would just be amazing. So like, and I know that they kind of put the hold on that back after they did TNG because I think they just didn't make the money back that they wanted on those Blu-rays, and now it's not like things are any better for physical media now. But with them streaming these shows, you got to figure, and especially with them now, I think realizing how important, no pun intended, but the legacy of Star Trek and the older shows is, that there might be renewed interest somewhere in the company to bring those shows up to a current standard. So I'm hoping.
I wouldn't hold your breath, but I'm hoping to. but it will be expensive, and if they're not going to make their money back on TNG, they're not going to make their money back on DS9.
Yeah. Well, you know, as a certain despicable brothel owner has said, a lot can happen between now and never.
Nice.
So I don't know. I think we'll get there one day, but in the meantime, I'm just so glad we got TNG remastered, looking beautiful, because that's a very
Nice.
it's an important show in the in the history of television. So I'm glad it looks as good as it does, and you just closing out. I'm so thankful for this season, which was so much more than I ever expected it to be. Even when people were talking about it, I was like, well, it's it's probably really good, but it's probably like they're probably being a bit over the top in their praise of it, but god damn, they just did a great job. So all right, so any final comments you guys want to give about the season or anything else?
No, I'll just I'll end on live long and prosper.
Indeed.
Goodbye from me and goodbye from Geordie.
All right.
Yeah, thanks for having us on though, John. This is fun.
No problem. Thanks for coming on. And before we go once more, I'll just say tomorrow over on Here Be Dragons at 6:00, Stephen, Jared, and I will be talking about the second half of The Mandalorian Season 3, which, speaking of ups and downs, I went through some of those big time with these episodes. So if you all ever wanted, me to throw in an equal dose of negativity along with positivity, tomorrow should be an interesting stream. And then the next weekend, Stephen and I will both be at Ice and Fire Con along with a bunch of our friends.
Nice.
So we won't be streaming then, but the week after that on Saturday, May 6th, make sure you all come back for a discussion on the Batman, which I'll be having with Jared and Blue Lemons. So thank you guys. I can't believe we got through it. It's been a long time, but this was a lot of fun. So thank you guys again for coming on. And
anytime. Thank you.
And I definitely want to have you guys back real soon. And AK, we're gonna
we're doing it.
Real good time with some classic films.
I do want to come on for Black Swan if you ever do that, because I love that movie so much.
I've got you marked down for that, so we'll be doing that soon. All right, thank you everybody. Thank you all for watching, and for those of you tuning in to Here Be Dragons, I'll see you tomorrow. If not, I'll see you in 2 weeks. Bye.
Live long and prosper.
Live long and prosper.